Millionaire Library.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Most people spend their entire lives becoming experts at their problems. They study them, they describe them in detail, they bring them to dinner, to bed, to every conversation they have, and they wonder why nothing changes. Here is the truth no one tells you early enough. The quality of your life is not determined by the size of your problems. It is determined by the speed at which you move from identifying a problem to building a solution. That gap, that mental space between "this is wrong" and "here is what I will do," that is where your future is decided. Let me ask you something. When something goes wrong in your life, a deal that falls through, a relationship that cracks, a month where money feels tight, what is the first thing your mind does? Be honest. Because most people, even ambitious ones, even smart ones, go straight into analysis mode. They replay the event. They ask why it happened. They look for someone to blame, sometimes others, sometimes themselves. And they stay there, stuck in the problem like it owes them something. The wealthy think differently, not because they are smarter, but because they trained a different reflex. I remember a mentor of mine, a man who had built 3 companies from nothing. One morning, he walked into a meeting and was told that a supplier had just canceled a contract worth $200,000. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at him, waiting for the storm. He took one breath and said, "All right, who can replace them by Thursday?" That was it. No drama, no blame, no long autopsy of what went wrong, just a clean pivot toward the next move. That is not coldness, that is discipline. The discipline of a solution-oriented mind. The problem-focused mind asks, "Why did this happen to me?" The solution-focused mind asks, "What can I do about it right now?" One question keeps you in the past, the other pulls you into the future, and the future is the only place where anything useful actually happens. Think about your brain for a moment. It is a search engine. Whatever question you type into it, it will find an answer. If you ask, "Why am I always struggling with money?" your brain will search and find every possible reason. It will bring you your childhood, your circumstances, your bad luck, your mistakes. It will give you a very complete, very convincing answer, and you will feel understood. And you will still be broke. But if you ask, "What is one action I can take today to earn more?" the same brain, same hardware, same history will search for something completely different. It will find an opportunity you missed, a skill you underused, a conversation worth having, a door worth knocking on. The question is the programming. Choose it carefully. Now, I want to be clear about something, because this is where many people misunderstand the lesson. Focusing on solutions does not mean ignoring reality. It does not mean pretending problems do not exist or skipping the emotional weight they carry. A solution-focused mind still sees the problem clearly. It just doesn't live there. You acknowledge the problem. You understand it. And then you redirect all your energy toward what you can actually control. That shift, that precise moment of redirection, is where character is built. That is where real growth happens. Not in the comfort of understanding what went wrong, but in the courage of deciding what comes next. Here is a concept I call the 5-second pivot. The moment you feel a problem pulling you into the spiral of worry or blame, you give yourself 5 seconds. You name the problem out loud or in your mind. You say, "I see you." And then you ask, "What is the next best move?" 5 seconds to acknowledge. Then you pivot. It sounds simple because it is. The difficulty is not in understanding it. The difficulty is in doing it when emotions are loud. Think about someone you admire, someone successful, calm, sharp. I can almost guarantee they are not people who have fewer problems. They are people who process problems faster. They feel the shock, they absorb it, and they move. That's the real skill. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to act while the fear is still there. And here's what no one tells ambitious people enough. The world rewards output, not intelligence. It rewards action, not awareness. You can understand your problems perfectly and still lose. Or you can understand them just enough and move forward with everything you have and still win. The market does not pay for your analysis. It pays for your solutions. So, starting today, I want you to notice one thing. Every time a problem appears in your day, and it will, notice how long you stay in the problem before you move towards a solution. That delay is your data. That delay tells you everything about where you are right now and how much room you have to grow. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with more knowledge. It is filled with better responses, faster pivots, cleaner thinking under pressure. This is what we're building in this book. Not inspiration, not motivation that fades by Tuesday. A new default, a new reflex, the mind that moves. Welcome to the beginning of a different way of thinking. The journey ahead is precise, practical, and it will ask something real from you. Are you ready to give it? Good, because that answer alone already puts you ahead.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
You do not realize it yet, but you are narrating your own prison. Every day, without knowing it, you speak your future into existence, or out of it. The words you use are not just sounds, they are instructions. They are signals your brain receives and obeys with absolute loyalty. And most people are giving their brain the worst possible commands, on repeat, all day long. This is too hard. I never have enough. Things never work out for me. I'm just not that kind of person. Your brain hears that, and it says, understood. Let me make that true for you. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. The language you use shapes the neural pathways that determine how you perceive opportunity, how you respond to pressure, and how quickly you recover from failure. Words are not decorative. They are structural. Let me show you what I mean with a simple contrast. Two people lose a client. Same situation, same financial impact. The first says, I always lose the good ones. I'm not cut out for sales. The second says, that one didn't work. What can I learn, and who do I call next? Same event, completely different internal programming. One sentence closes a door, the other opens a corridor. Now, which one do you think will be closing deals 6 months from now? The solution-focused mind does not just think differently, it speaks differently. And it starts with something most people overlook entirely, the questions they ask themselves in private. Think about your internal monologue, that quiet voice that runs in the background of your mind all day. What is it saying? Because whatever it is saying, your life is slowly becoming a reflection of it, not instantly, but consistently, the way water shapes stone, not by force, but by repetition. Here's a shift that costs nothing and changes everything. Replace why with how. Why can't I get ahead financially becomes how can I create one new income stream this month? Why do people not take me seriously becomes how can I communicate my value more clearly? Why is this so difficult becomes how do I make this simpler? Why anchors you in the past and invites excuses. How pulls you into the future and invites action. One word, completely different trajectory. I want to tell you about a young woman I know. She grew up in a modest household, no inheritance, no connections, no special advantages. By 28, she owned a small consulting firm with 6 figures in annual revenue. I asked her once what the biggest shift in her life had been. She did not say a book or a mentor or a strategy. She said, I stopped saying I can't afford it and started asking, how can I create the money for this? That sounds small. It is not. That is a complete rewiring of identity. Because I can't afford it is a closed statement. It ends the conversation between you and possibility. How do I create the money for this is an open question. It starts a search, and your brain, that loyal search engine, will begin to find answers. The vocabulary of the wealthy is not more sophisticated, it's more intentional. They don't say, I have to, they say, I choose to. They don't say, I'll try, they say, I will. They don't say, that's impossible, they say, I haven't figured that out yet. These are not just positive affirmations, they are accuracy corrections, because I can't is usually a lie. What most people mean is I don't know how yet, or I haven't prioritized this. Those are very different truths, and the language you choose around them determines whether you stay stuck or start moving. Pay attention now, because this next part matters deeply. The way you speak about others is also a mirror. When you constantly frame other people as the reason your life isn't working, the boss who doesn't see you, the partner who holds you back, the market that's unfair, you are telling your brain that your life is in someone else's hands. And the moment you believe that, you stop looking for what you can control. Blame is comfortable, but it is expensive. It costs you your agency, and agency is the most valuable thing you own. Solution-focused language always returns to the self, not out of ego, out of power, because the only place you can actually change anything is within your own sphere of control. Here's a practice I want you to try for the next 7 days. Every time you catch yourself using limiting language, I can't, it's impossible, they won't let me, it never works, pause. Reframe it into a question that starts with how or what. Do it out loud if you can. The sound of your own voice saying something empowering activates something different than just thinking it. It makes it real. You will feel resistance. Your old patterns will push back. That resistance is normal. It means the rewiring has begun. One more thing before we move forward. The language you use around money specifically is worth examining. Many people carry inherited beliefs about wealth without ever questioning them. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. We're just not that kind of family. Those sentences were handed to you before you were old enough to decide if you believed them, and they've been running in the background ever since, quietly capping what you allow yourself to reach for. You are allowed to rewrite them. In fact, you are required to if you want a different outcome. Your words are the blueprint. Your life is the building. If you don't like the structure, change the plans. The person you are becoming is already listening to everything you say. Speak to them with intention. Nobody talks about what comfort actually costs you. We celebrate rest. We romanticize ease. We call it balance, self-care, peace of mind. And some of it genuinely is. But there is a version of comfort that is not rest at all. It is slow surrender, dressed in reasonable clothes. And it is the single greatest thief of potential in the lives of ambitious people. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The brain is not designed to help you grow. It is designed to keep you alive. And to the brain, alive means familiar. Familiar means safe. Safe means stay exactly where you are. Every time you consider a bold move, starting the business, having the difficult conversation, leaving the job that pays well but kills you quietly, your brain sends an alarm. It floods you with doubt, with worst-case scenarios, with 100 logical reasons to wait. That alarm is not wisdom, it is biology, and most people obey it for their entire lives. The result is a life that looks fine from the outside and feels like a slow ache on the inside. Ask yourself honestly, Is there something you have been waiting to start? Something you have been telling yourself you will do when the time is right? When you have more money, more experience, more confidence? How long have you been waiting? Because I want you to consider the possibility that the wait itself is the problem, not the circumstances, the habit of waiting. Comfort is seductive because it offers you something real in the short term, relief, safety, the absence of risk. But it charges interest. Every month you spend in a comfort zone that no longer serves you, you are paying with your potential. You are trading your future for your present ease, and that is a terrible exchange rate. Let me tell you about a man named David. 34 years old, talented, well-read, full of ideas. He had been planning to launch an online business for 3 years. He had the concept, he had done the research, he had notebooks full of strategy. But every time he got close to launching, something came up. A new obstacle to study, a new skill he felt he needed first, a new reason to wait another month. He was not lazy, he was addicted to preparation. Preparation had become his comfort zone. It felt like progress, it looked like discipline, but it was fear wearing a productive costume. The day he finally launched, with an imperfect product, an unfinished website, and 37 subscribers, was the day his actual education began. Within 4 months, he had learned more from real feedback than from 3 years of research. Within a year, his business was generating income. The preparation did not make him ready. The action did. This is the paradox of comfort. The more you stay in it, the less capable you feel of leaving it. The walls get higher the longer you stand inside them. But the moment you step out, even badly, even imperfectly, you discover that the danger was mostly imaginary, that the fear was louder than the reality, that you were more ready than you thought. There's a concept in psychology called the optimal zone of development. It lives just outside your comfort zone, not in the panic zone, not in reckless, unplanned risk, but in the stretch zone. The place where something is slightly harder than what you've done before. That is where growth actually happens, in the stretch, in the discomfort that is productive rather than destructive. The wealthy are not comfortable people. They are people who have made peace with discomfort. They have learned to read nervousness not as a stop sign, but as a signal that something worth doing is on the other side. Think about the last time you did something genuinely difficult. Something that scared you before you did it. How did you feel afterward? Not during. During is hard. During is uncomfortable. But after. That feeling, that expansion, that quiet pride, that sense that you are slightly more than you were yesterday, that is only available on the other side of discomfort. Comfort can never give you that. Comfort keeps you the same size. Here's something I want you to sit with. Comfort zones are not fixed, they are habitual. Which means they can be changed, not by a single dramatic act of courage, though those matter, but by small, consistent acts of choosing the harder option, taking the call you have been avoiding, sending the email you drafted and deleted 3 times, saying yes to the opportunity that excites and terrifies you in equal measure. Every small act of courage trains the nervous system. Every time you choose discomfort and survive it, and you always survive it, you expand what feels normal to you. Your new comfort zone becomes bigger. What once felt impossible starts to feel manageable. What once felt bold starts to feel like Tuesday. This is how confidence is actually built. Not by thinking about it, not by reading about it, by doing the thing, feeling the fear, and continuing anyway. I want to give you one practical tool to use starting today. I call it the discomfort audit. At the end of each week, ask yourself one question. What did I do this week that was harder than what I did last week? If you cannot answer that question, you did not grow. You maintained. And maintaining is fine for a machine, but you are not a machine. You are a person with potential that is not yet expressed. Growth is not a mystery. It's a practice. And like all practices, it begins with a decision made in a quiet moment before the world wakes up, before the excuses arrive, before comfort convinces you that today is not the day. Today is always the day. The most expensive real estate in the world is not in New York or Dubai. It's inside your comfort zone, because that's where your unlived life is stored. Step out. The view from the other side is worth everything you leave behind. Chapter 4. The Art of Seeing What Others Miss. Most people look at the same world and see the same things. That is why most people get the same results. The difference between someone who spots an opportunity and someone who walks past it is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is not even experience. It is perception. The trained ability to look at a situation, a problem, a gap, a moment of friction, and ask a question that most people never think to ask. What could this become? That question is worth millions. Literally. Every significant business ever built started as someone noticing something that others had accepted as normal. A frustration that everyone felt but nobody solved. A process that was slow, expensive, or broken, and had been for years because nobody stopped long enough to ask why it had to be that way. The person who asked that question and then acted on the answer built something. Everyone else kept complaining. Howard Schultz did not invent coffee. He walked into a cafe in Milan, felt something, a sense of warmth, community, ritual, and asked why that experience did not exist back home. He did not solve a technical problem, he solved an experiential one. And Starbucks was born not from genius, but from paying attention. That is the skill. Paying attention differently. Most people move through their day on autopilot. They experience friction and file it under "that's just how it is." They notice inefficiency and assume someone smarter must have already tried to fix it. They see gaps and walk past them because they do not believe the gap is meant for them to fill. That belief that someone else will handle it is one of the most costly assumptions a person can carry. The gap is always meant for someone. It might as well be you. Let me ask you something direct. In your own life right now, your work, your industry, your daily experience, what frustrates you repeatedly? What do you find yourself wishing existed, wishing worked differently, wishing someone would finally fix? Write that down somewhere, because that frustration is data. That irritation you keep brushing aside might be the outline of your next opportunity. Problems are just solutions waiting for someone willing to see them that way. This is not just about entrepreneurship. This applies to your career, your relationships, your finances. The person who gets promoted is rarely the most technically skilled. They are the one who sees what the team needs before anyone asks, who anticipates the problem before it becomes a crisis, who offers the solution while others are still defining the issue. That awareness is a practiced skill, and like all skills, it improves with deliberate attention. Here's a concept I call solution vision. It is the habit of scanning your environment not for what is wrong, but for what is missing. There's a difference. What is wrong invites complaint. What is missing invites creation. One is a dead end, the other is a door. Developing solution vision requires you to slow down slightly in a world that rewards speed. Not to be slow, but to be deliberate. To pause when something feels off and ask what it's pointing to. To sit with a problem long enough to understand its shape before reaching for the obvious answer, because the obvious answer is what everyone reaches for, and obvious answers produce average results. The best solutions are rarely complicated. They are usually simple ideas that required someone to look at a familiar problem from an unfamiliar angle, a different vantage point, a beginner's eye in an expert's world. There's a reason some of the most disruptive companies in history were built by outsiders, people who entered an industry without knowing the rules, without the conditioning that told them certain things simply could not be done. They didn't know what was impossible, so they did it anyway. Ignorance of limitation can be a profound advantage when it's paired with curiosity and action. You do not need to be an outsider to think like one. You just need to practice questioning what you've been trained to accept. I want to give you a specific exercise. Choose one area of your life, your work, your finances, a recurring problem you face. Spend 10 minutes writing down every assumption you currently hold about how that area works, every belief about what is fixed, what is normal, what cannot change. Then go through that list and ask, one by one, is this actually true, or is this just what I was told? Is this a law, or is this a habit? Is this a fact, or is this a story? You'll find assumptions hiding inside certainties. And inside those assumptions, if you look carefully, you'll find room. Room to do something differently. Room to create something new. Room to move while everyone else stands still. The world does not pay for the person who sees problems most clearly. It pays for the person who sees through problems to what lies on the other side. That's solution vision, and it's available to anyone willing to practice it. One last thing. Opportunities do not announce themselves. They do not come with labels or timestamps. They come disguised as inconvenience, as difficulty, as the thing you almost scrolled past, the conversation you almost did not have, the idea you dismissed as too simple. The training is in learning to recognize the disguise. Start paying attention to what bothers you. Start asking what is missing rather than what is wrong. Start treating your frustrations as a map rather than a burden. The territory those frustrations point to might be exactly where you are supposed to go. Every result in your life is the child of a decision. Not circumstances, not luck, not timing. Decisions. The accumulation of choices made quickly or slowly, boldly or fearfully, consciously or by default. Your bank account, your relationships, your health, your career. Trace any of them back far enough and you will find a decision at the root. Sometimes a big one. More often, 100 small ones that compounded quietly over time. This means something important. It means your life is more in your hands than you have been allowing yourself to believe. Most people have a complicated relationship with decisions. They delay them, dilute them, outsource them, or make them so slowly that circumstances make the choice for them, and then they call that fate. It is not fate. It is abdication, the quiet surrender of authorship over your own story. Here is what the solution-focused mind understands that others do not. Indecision is itself a decision. Waiting is a choice. Staying silent when you should speak, staying still when you should move, staying in what no longer serves you because leaving feels too uncertain. These are all active choices with real consequences. The cost of not deciding is just as real as the cost of deciding wrongly. It is simply less visible. And invisible costs are the most dangerous kind. Think about a financial decision you delayed in the past. Maybe an investment you considered and talked yourself out of. Maybe a skill you kept meaning to develop but never prioritized. Maybe a conversation about money you avoided because it felt uncomfortable. Whatever it was, what did that delay cost you? Not in guilt, in actual outcome, because time is the one resource that does not refill. Every month of indecision is a month of compounding that did not happen. The wealthy are not fearless decision makers. They are fast ones. There is a difference. They feel the uncertainty. They always feel it. But they have developed the ability to make a clear enough decision with imperfect information and then adjust as they move. They understand that a good decision made today beats a perfect decision made too late. Always. Let me tell you about a principle used by some of the most effective leaders in the world. It is called the 70% rule. When you have roughly 70% of the information you wish you had, make the decision and move. Do not wait for 90. Do not wait for certainty. Certainty is a myth. The market changes. People change. Circumstances shift. By the time you have gathered enough information to feel completely safe, the moment has often passed and someone else has taken the opportunity you were still studying. 70% and move. Adjust in motion. Now I want to address something that holds intelligent people back more than almost anything else: analysis paralysis. The more options you have, the harder it becomes to choose. The more you research, the more complexity you uncover. The more you think, the more doubt you manufacture. Intelligence without decisiveness becomes a trap, a very sophisticated, very convincing trap. The solution is not to think less, it is to decide faster by getting clear on your values first, because decisions become exponentially easier when you know what you stand for. When your priorities are clear, most choices are not actually difficult. They require the honesty to choose in alignment with what you say matters to you. Here is a question worth sitting with. What are the 3 things you value most in your professional life right now? Freedom, impact, income, growth, security, creativity? Whatever they are, name them clearly. Now look at your most recent significant decision. Did it move you toward those values or away from them? If the answer is away, you already know what needs to change. The decision is not the hard part. The honesty is. I want to share a short story. A woman in her early 30s had been offered a partnership opportunity in a growing company. The terms were good, the people were solid, the risk was manageable, but she spent 4 months deliberating. She made lists, she asked everyone she knew, she ran the numbers repeatedly. She was not gathering information anymore. She was performing the ritual of deciding without actually deciding. Eventually, the offer was extended to someone else. She told me later that the worst part was not losing the opportunity, it was realizing she had already known what she wanted to do in the first meeting. She just hadn't trusted herself enough to say yes. That's the real issue beneath indecision. Not confusion, not insufficient data, self-trust. The belief that your judgment is reliable enough to act on. And self-trust, like all trust, is built through repeated action. Every time you make a decision and follow through, regardless of outcome, you deposit something into your internal account. Over time, that account grows, and the decisions that once felt paralyzing start to feel clear. Start small if you need to. Make a decision today that you've been postponing. It doesn't need to be life-changing, it needs to be made. Commit to it. Follow through. Notice how that feels. Then do it again tomorrow. Decisive people are not born, they are built, one committed choice at a time. There's also something worth saying about wrong decisions. You will make them. Everyone does. The solution-focused mind doesn't treat a wrong decision as evidence of incompetence. It treats it as data. What did this teach me? What would I do differently? How do I adjust from here? A wrong decision followed by a fast correction is almost always less costly than no decision at all. Fail forward, adjust fast, keep moving. Your life is a sequence of open doors. Every decision is a step toward one of them. Standing still in the corridor hoping the perfect door will reveal itself is not strategy. It is fear with good posture. Choose a door. Walk through it. If it leads somewhere unexpected, choose again. That's not recklessness. That's how lives worth living are actually built.
You will become the average of the conversations you have most often. Not the books you read, not the podcasts you listen to, not the goals you write down in January. The conversations. The daily exchange of ideas, complaints, ambitions, and beliefs between you and the people closest to you. That environment, invisible, constant, deeply personal, is quietly setting the upper limit of what you believe is possible for your life. This is not a comfortable truth, but it is one of the most actionable ones in this entire book. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not who you wish you spend time with, who you actually do. What do they talk about most? What is the dominant energy in those conversations? Are they people who are building something? Who speak about the future with intention, who challenge you to think bigger, who celebrate your growth without envy? Or are they people who are comfortable, who find reasons why things will not work, who mistake cynicism for intelligence, who feel threatened when you start to change. Be honest, because your answer explains a great deal about where you are right now. This is not about judging people or cutting everyone off dramatically. It is about understanding influence. Human beings are profoundly social creatures. We calibrate ourselves constantly to the people around us. What feels normal to us, what feels ambitious, what feels possible, all of it is shaped by our social environment. If everyone around you thinks that a certain income level is the ceiling, you will unconsciously stop reaching beyond it, not because you decided to, because the environment decided for you. The wealthiest people I have studied share one consistent pattern. They are intentional about their relationships. They seek out people who are operating at a level above their current one, not to feel inferior, but to recalibrate what feels normal. When you spend time with people who have built what you want to build, your baseline shifts. What once seemed exceptional starts to seem achievable. What once seemed impossible starts to seem like a matter of time and strategy. Proximity is power. Choose it deliberately. Let me tell you about Marcus. He grew up in a neighborhood where nobody he knew had ever started a business. The idea of entrepreneurship was not dismissed in his world. It simply did not exist as a real option. It was the kind of thing that happened to other people in other places. When he moved to a new city at 25 and began spending time around founders and builders, something unexpected happened. He did not suddenly become smarter. His ideas did not change overnight, but his sense of what was normal for someone like him completely shifted. Within 2 years, he had launched his first venture. He told me later that the environment did not give him the idea, it gave him the permission. That word matters, permission. So much of what holds people back is not lack of skill or opportunity. It is the absence of a living, breathing example that someone like them can do something like this. When you see it done in real life by a real person, the psychological barrier dissolves and the path forward becomes visible. This is why mentorship is not a luxury, it's a shortcut. Not to avoid the work is non-negotiable, but to avoid spending years discovering what someone else already knows. A great mentor compresses your timeline. They show you the mistakes before you make them, the patterns before you recognize them, the doors before you know they exist. If you do not have a mentor yet, start by studying people at a distance. Read their interviews, watch their decisions, understand their thinking. You can absorb a great deal from someone you have never met if you pay careful enough attention to how they move through the world. And then, this part is important, bring value before you ask for anything. The fastest way to access people operating at a higher level is not to ask what they can give you, it is to show up with something worth giving. Insight, effort, a skill, a connection, a perspective they haven't considered. Relationships at every level are built on exchange. The quality of what you bring determines the quality of what you attract. Now, let me address the harder side of this conversation. Sometimes the people shaping your ceiling are people you love. Family members who mean well but project their own fears onto your ambitions. Friends who have known you for years and feel uncomfortable watching you change. Partners who prefer the version of you that is smaller, more predictable, less threatening to the comfort of the life you have built together. This is delicate territory, and I want to speak carefully here. You do not need to choose between your growth and your relationships, but you do need to be honest about which relationships can grow with you and which ones are anchored to a version of you that no longer exists. Some people in your life will rise with you if you give them the chance. Others will pull you back, not out of malice, but out of fear. Their own fear of change, of being left behind, of a future that looks different from what they planned. Compassion does not require you to shrink. You can love people fully and still protect your trajectory. The practical work here is simple but requires courage. Audit your circle. Identify the conversations that expand you and the ones that contract you. Invest more in the former. Protect your energy around the latter. Seek out one new relationship this month with someone who's operating where you want to be. Join a community, attend an event, reach out to someone whose work you respect. One connection made with intention can change the direction of years. Your network is not just a professional asset, it's a mirror. It reflects back to you what is normal, what is possible, and what you are worth. Make sure that mirror is showing you something worth becoming. The ceiling above you is not fixed. It is made of the beliefs of the people around you. Change the people, and the ceiling disappears. Choose your circle like your life depends on it, because in ways you cannot always see, it does.
Everyone has the same 24 hours. You have heard that before. And every time you hear it, something inside you resists it because it does not feel true. It feels like some people have more time, move faster, produce more, build more, live more, all within the same calendar that leaves you feeling perpetually behind. The resistance is valid, but the statement is also true. And holding both of those things at once is where the real insight lives. The issue is not time. The issue is relationship with time. Most people experience time as something that happens to them. The day fills up, the week disappears, the month ends before the important things got done, and then the year closes and the goals that mattered in January are quietly rolled over to the next one. This is not laziness. It is a lack of architecture. A life without intentional structure will always be colonized by urgency, and urgency is almost never important. There is a distinction that changed everything for me, and for many people I have shared it with. The distinction between urgent and important. Urgent things demand your attention right now. They are loud, they are pressing, they create anxiety if ignored. Important things move you toward what actually matters, your growth, your vision, your financial freedom, your deepest relationships. Here is the problem. Urgent things are almost never important, and important things are almost never urgent, which means if you spend your life responding to what is loud, you will spend your life neglecting what matters. Think about your last week. How much of it was spent reacting to messages, to requests, to small fires that needed putting out, versus creating, building, advancing something that genuinely matters to you? Be precise, because the ratio of those two modes is one of the most honest indicators of where your life is heading. Reactive living feels productive. It keeps you busy. It gives you the sensation of movement. But busyness is not progress. You can be exhausted and stagnant at the same time. Many people are. The solution-focused mind approaches time as a resource to be designed, not a current to be carried along by. It asks not what needs to be done today, but what must be done today to move the future forward. That question sounds similar. It produces completely different results. Here's a framework I call the three-tier day. Every morning, before the noise begins, you identify three things. One task that is essential, the single most important thing you could do today that advances your most significant goal. One task that is necessary, operational, practical, the maintenance of your life and work. And one task that is generative, something that plants a seed for the future. A conversation, a piece of content, a new skill, a relationship invested in. Essential, necessary, generative, in that order. Everything else is negotiable. Most people invert this entirely. They spend their day on the necessary, occasionally touch the essential, and never reach the generative. And then they wonder why years pass without the feeling of real progress.
The generative work is where compounding begins. It is the work that does not pay off today or this week, but creates disproportionate return over months and years. Writing the article, building the audience, developing the relationship, learning the skill. These things feel optional in the moment because they carry no immediate deadline, but they are the most important investments you will ever make with your time. Treat them as appointments you cannot cancel. Let me talk about mornings specifically, not because every successful person wakes at 5. That is a myth that has been oversimplified into a productivity cliché. But because the first hour of your day sets a tone that echoes through everything that follows. If your first hour is reactive, checking messages, scrolling, absorbing other people's urgency, you have already handed your most cognitively fresh moments to someone else's agenda. Guard the morning. Use it for your most important creative or strategic work before the world makes its demands. Even 30 minutes of protected, focused, intentional work in the morning will produce more meaningful output than 3 hours of fragmented effort in the afternoon. Your brain is not equally available all day. Energy and focus follow rhythms. The solution-focused approach to time includes understanding your own rhythms and designing your day around them. When are you sharpest? When do you do your best thinking? When does your energy naturally dip? Schedule accordingly. High-value work in high-energy windows, administrative and reactive work in low-energy ones. This sounds obvious. Almost nobody does it. Now I want to address something that masquerades as productivity but is one of the great thieves of time in modern life: multitasking. The brain cannot genuinely focus on 2 cognitively demanding tasks simultaneously. What feels like multitasking is actually rapid task switching, and every switch carries a cognitive cost, a reset time, a loss of depth, a dilution of quality. The person who works on one thing with full attention for 90 minutes will consistently outperform the person who works on 5 things simultaneously for the same period. Single tasking is not a limitation. It is a superpower in a world addicted to fragmentation. Here's something worth considering. The most valuable things in life are built slowly. Wealth, mastery, deep relationships, genuine reputation. None of these are created in a sprint. They are created through consistent, intentional effort applied over time. This is why your relationship with time matters so profoundly, not for productivity's sake, but because the life you want is on the other side of sustained, focused effort. And sustained effort requires a relationship with time that is deliberate rather than reactive. You don't find time. You don't manage time. You design it, proactively, structurally, with the same seriousness you would bring to any investment that matters. Because that's exactly what it is. Time is the investment. Everything else, money, skill, opportunity, is the return. One final thought for this chapter. At the end of your life, you will not wish you had answered more messages. You will not regret the urgent things you let go unanswered. What you will remember, what will matter, is whether the time you had was spent on the things and the people that were genuinely worth it. Start spending it that way now. Not someday, now. The calendar does not lie. Look at yours and ask yourself honestly, does it reflect the life you say you want to build? If the answer is no, you already know what needs to change.
There is a story most people tell themselves about failure, that it means something is wrong with them, that it is evidence of a limit, that it is a signal to stop, to protect, to retreat to safer ground. That story is one of the most expensive fictions a person can carry, and almost everyone carries it. Rewrite it, starting now. Every person you admire who has built something real, wealth, mastery, impact, freedom, has a failure history that would shock you if you saw it fully. Not despite their success, as part of it. The failures were not detours from the path. They were the path. The education that no university offers, the data that no research could provide, the experience that forged the judgment that eventually made everything work. You cannot buy that education. You cannot borrow it. You cannot watch someone else go through it and absorb the same lesson. You have to live it. And living it requires being willing to fail. The question is never whether you will fail. You will. The only question is whether your failures will be investments or endpoints, whether you extract the lesson and move forward or absorb the blow and stop. That choice, made in the aftermath of every setback, is where character is forged and futures are decided. Let me be precise about something. There are two kinds of failure, and most people confuse them. The first is reckless failure, the result of poor preparation, ignored warning signs, decisions made from ego or impatience. This kind of failure is avoidable and worth avoiding. The second is intelligent failure, the result of a reasonable bet, well considered, that did not work out the way you expected. This kind of failure is not just acceptable, it is necessary. It is the tuition of growth. And the only way to never experience it is to never try anything worth doing. Most people are so afraid of the first kind that they avoid any situation where the second might occur. And in doing so, they protect themselves right out of any meaningful life. Think about the last time you failed at something that mattered. Not a small inconvenience, something real. How did you respond in the days that followed? Did you extract the lesson quickly and redirect your energy? Or did you spend weeks in the emotional aftermath, replaying what went wrong, shrinking your ambitions to avoid the same pain again? Both responses are human, but only one of them moves you forward. The speed of your recovery from failure is one of the most accurate predictors of your eventual success. Not the absence of failure, the recovery speed. Resilience is not a personality trait you either have or do not have. It is a practiced response, a trained reflex. And like all reflexes, it improves every time you use it. I want to tell you about a man named James. He launched a tech startup at 29. 18 months in, it collapsed. The market shifted, the funding dried up, the team disbanded. He lost 2 years of savings and what felt like 2 years of his life. For 3 months afterward, he did almost nothing. He was not lazy, he was processing. Grief is a real part of failure when something genuinely mattered to you. Denying that doesn't make you stronger, it makes you dishonest. But at the 4-month mark, something shifted. He sat down and wrote out everything the failure had taught him. Not what went wrong from the outside, what he had learned about himself, his blind spots, his tendencies under pressure, the decisions he had made from fear rather than strategy, the partners he had chosen for the wrong reasons, the warnings he had seen and ignored. That document became the blueprint for his next venture, not a copy of the first one, a corrected version, built with the knowledge that only failure could have given him. His second company was acquired 4 years later for a number that changed his life entirely. The failure was not the obstacle, it was the qualification. Here's a reframe I want you to hold. Every failure contains a gift. It is rarely wrapped nicely. It usually arrives with pain, embarrassment, financial pressure, or wounded pride. But inside it, if you are willing to look, is a piece of information you couldn't have gotten any other way. A correction to your strategy, a revelation about your character, a clarity about what you actually want versus what you thought you wanted. The people who extract that gift and use it are the ones who eventually win. The people who focus only on the wound never open the package. This connects directly to the core theme of this book. The problem-focused mind looks at failure and asks, "Why did this happen to me?" It stays in the wound. The solution-focused mind looks at failure and asks, "What is this teaching me and what do I do next?" It opens the package. One question keeps you in the past, the other pulls you into your next chapter. There's also something worth addressing about public failure. The fear of being seen to fail,
by peers, by family, by people online, is for many people more powerful than the fear of the failure itself. We live in a world where everything is visible, where perception feels permanent, where the highlight reels of others make our own stumbles feel disproportionately shameful. But here's the reality. Nobody is watching as closely as you think. And the people who are watching and judging your failures are, almost universally, people who are not building anything themselves. The critics are in the stands. The people who matter, who respect real effort, who understand real risk, they know exactly what it costs to try. They're not judging your failure, they're respecting your attempt. Do not let the noise of the stands stop you from playing on the field. Let me give you a practice for navigating failure when it arrives, and it will arrive. In the immediate aftermath, give yourself permission to feel it fully. Don't perform resilience before you've processed the reality. Grieve the loss if it's real. Then, within a defined window, a week, 2 weeks, whatever feels honest, begin the extraction process. Ask 3 questions. What did I learn about the situation? What did I learn about myself? And what would I do differently with what I now know? Write the answers. Keep them. Build on them. Because those answers are not just lessons, they are assets. They are the compounding knowledge that separates the person you are today from the person you are becoming. Failure is not the end of your story. It is the chapter that makes the ending worth reaching. Every scar on a builder's hands tells the story of something attempted, something risked, something real. Wear yours with the quiet pride of someone who chose to be in the arena when staying outside was always an option. That choice, to try, to risk, to fail forward, is the choice that defines everything. Make it again tomorrow, and the day after that, for as long as it takes. Because it always takes exactly as long as it takes, and it is always worth it.
This is the last chapter, and I want you to feel the weight of that, not as an ending, but as a threshold. Everything we have covered in this book has been pointing toward a single truth. The quality of your life is not determined by what happens to you, it is determined by how you respond. By the questions you ask, by the language you use, by the decisions you make and the speed at which you make them, by the people you surround yourself with, by your relationship with time, with failure, with discomfort, with opportunity. All of it, every chapter, every concept, every reframe has been building toward one thing, a new version of you, more deliberate, more solution-focused, more alive to the possibilities that were always there, waiting to be seen. That version of you is not a distant fantasy. It is the logical result of the work you are willing to do starting today. Let me take you back to the beginning for a moment. We opened this book with a simple but sharp observation. Most people are experts at their problems. They have studied them, described them, carried them everywhere. And that focus, that persistent habitual attention on what is wrong, has been quietly shaping their reality in ways they rarely examine. The solution-focused mind is not a personality type you are born with. It is a practice, a daily deliberate choice to redirect your attention from the obstacle to the opening, from the problem to the path forward. You now have the tools. The question is what you do with them. Here is what I know about the person reading or listening to this right now. You are not here by accident. People who consume content like this, who seek out ideas, who invest time in their own growth, who are willing to sit with uncomfortable truths and extract lessons from them, these are not ordinary people. They are people in motion, people who have decided at some level that the default life is not enough, that there is something more worth building, worth becoming. That decision, however quietly it was made, is the most important one you will ever make. Because it is the decision that precedes all other decisions, the decision to grow, to show up, to keep going when it would be easier to stop. Honor it every single day. Now, I want to speak to something real. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people live permanently.
They read the books, they understand the concepts, they nod at the insights and feel genuinely inspired. And then life resumes, and the old patterns return, and the inspiration fades like morning fog. This is not a failure of motivation, it is a failure of implementation. Knowledge without structure dissolves. Inspiration without action expires. So before you close this book, I want you to do one thing. Choose one idea from these 9 chapters, just one, that resonated most deeply with you. The concept that made you pause, the reframe that shifted something, the question that you have not been able to fully answer yet. Take that one idea and convert it into one specific action you will take in the next 24 hours. Not next week, not when things settle down. Tomorrow. One idea, one action, 24 hours. That is how transformation actually begins. Not in a dramatic overnight revolution, in a single committed step, followed by another, compounded over time into a life that looks nothing like where you started. The solution-focused life is not a destination, it is a practice that never ends. There will always be new problems, new failures, new moments of doubt, new ceilings to push through. The difference between the person you were before this book and the person you are becoming is not the absence of those challenges, it is your relationship to them, the speed of your pivot, the quality of your questions, the clarity of your next move. That is the real wealth, not the money, though the money will follow. The real wealth is the mind that can navigate anything. The mind that looks at difficulty and asks, what is possible here? The mind that never stays in the problem longer than necessary. The mind that keeps moving. You are building that mind right now. Every chapter was a rep. Every concept was a tool. Every question I asked you to sit with was a small renovation of your inner architecture. And renovations are not always comfortable. They are always worth it. I want to say something to you directly before we close. Something I mean without performance or formula. I am proud of you. Not because you finished a book, because you chose to invest in yourself when you didn't have to, because you sat with ideas that challenged you, because somewhere in these pages you found something that made you think differently about your own potential. That takes courage, more than most people give it credit. The world needs people who think in solutions, who move through difficulty without being consumed by it, who build instead of complain, who lead instead of wait, who create instead of criticize. That's the person you are choosing to be. And that choice ripples outward into your work, your relationships, your community, into the lives of people you will influence in ways you cannot yet imagine. Do not underestimate what you are building. Do not underestimate who you are becoming. The road ahead will ask more of you than you think you have. It always does. And every time it does, you will discover that you had more than you thought. That has always been true of you. You are only now beginning to believe it. Go build the life that is waiting for you. Not the safe version, not the reasonable version. The real one. The one that requires everything you have and gives back more than you imagined. It's there. It has always been there. You just needed to start looking in the right direction. Thank you for trusting this journey. Thank you for your time, your attention, your willingness to grow. Those are not small things. They are everything. Now, close this chapter and go open the next one, the one that is yours to write. Subscribe to the Millionaire Library, and if you want to go deeper, I left a full playlist waiting for you in the description.